If you are new to my channel, I encourage you to check out all my videos covering Terri Bevers' case prior to watching this video. You can view those videos under my playlist tab. In this video, I'm going to respond to some of the comments and questions that have been made by viewers of my Terri Bevers videos. I also have some brand new still images of Terri's probable killer captured from the SWFA and Creekside surveillance footage to share with you all. The reason this video is titled Endgame is because I truly believe that law enforcement is closing in on Terri's killer and are just a few critical moves away from checkmate. 2022 may be the year that we finally see an arrest on this case. Alright, so first, let's get into some of these comments and questions. I'm going to be paraphrasing and simplifying some of these comments and questions for the sake of time and clarity. I'm going to start out with the most frequently asked question I have received. Have you contacted law enforcement about what you have discovered? Yes. Prior to uploading all of my detailed analysis videos, I send all of the important information and images over to law enforcement. One of my favorite subscribers, Into the Fold, asks, has there been any more updates on this case? No. There has not been any updates on Terri's case from law enforcement in recent years. However, I do want to add that I did finally receive a response from Midlothian PD, albeit extremely short, but at least I know they are receiving my information and photos. Next up is a comment from Buffalo Shrimp 45, who says, there is no way law enforcement wouldn't be able to track Terri's killer down based off the information you have revealed in your videos. While I agree, Buffalo, we must consider that law enforcement are still attempting to gather as much evidence as possible against Terri's killer in order to get a conviction. It's possible they have Terri's killer in their sights already, and they're just trying to gather more evidence to build a stronger case against him. Next up is Alec Hagan, who asks, are these videos getting any circulation in North Texas social media groups? I don't know the answer to that, Alec. I would say the answer is no, based on the fact that my videos covering Terri's case have received zero mainstream media attention and little to no attention on social media. There are people out there who know Terri's killer, but have no idea what he has done. My hope is that the killer's family, friends, co-workers, caregivers, podiatrist, or just some random person will see my videos, recognize him from the details I have put forth, and make that critical call to law enforcement. The next question comes from Jordan Lidd. Jordan asks, are they sure that the SWFA driver was also Missy's killer? If you follow the evidence, Jordan, there is little to no doubt that the SWFA driver is Terri's probable killer. Let's look at the facts. Number 1. The SWFA driver exits the parking lot at 2:04 a.m. 19 minutes after leaving the SWFA parking lot, camera motion sensors were triggered at the Creekside Church about a half a mile away at 2:23 a.m. Reason number 2. Look at the comparison photos that I have presented of the SWFA driver and the Creekside killer. There are many similarities in what they are wearing, their skin tone, and their nose shape. Reason number 3. Midlothian PD are still asking for the SWFA driver to come forward, or for someone with information on the SWFA driver to come forward. If the SWFA driver had absolutely no involvement in Terri's case, law enforcement never would have put the SWFA video out in the first place, let alone ask the public for more information on the driver. Law enforcement is hoping for the driver, or someone who knows the driver, to come forward and talk to them. That's probably why Midlothian PD haven't come out and straight up said the SWFA driver is connected. Reason number 4. The SWFA driver's license plate appears to be a disability license plate, and the Creekside killer coincidentally happens to have some sort of disability. Law enforcement has pointed out the suspect's bizarre gait in multiple press releases and have stated that they believe he may have an injury of some sort. This portion of the Creekside footage is especially of interest. Notice the way the suspect drags and swings his stiff right leg while leaning against the wall for support in the surveillance footage. Taking all of this into consideration, I believe we can reasonably state at this point that the SWFA driver is probably Terri's killer. If you still have some reservations about whether the SWFA driver is Terri's probable killer, stick around till the end of this video, where I'm going to reveal some still images of the Creekside killer's face for the first time to the public. The next question is from G, who asks, did the church have exterior cameras at the time? Yes, G. Creekside did in fact have exterior cameras at the time of Terri Bevers' murder. However, my understanding is that the cameras were not functioning at that time, and therefore we have no exterior camera footage. AM74343 asks, why has no CCTV footage of the killer leaving the scene of the crime ever been released? As mentioned previously, the exterior cameras at the Creekside Church were down at the time of Terri's murder. Now, if you're talking about the interior cameras, law enforcement are absolutely holding back some more of the surveillance footage. Possibly because there is information in the footage that they don't want leaked to the public. Additionally, they don't want to cause the Beaver family any more pain by showing her on camera. How much of the footage is being held back is not known. I've noticed that there are some abrupt cuts and jumps in the footage that has been released, like this portion of the footage where Terri's killer teleports from here to here. This leads me to believe that there's probably several minutes of footage being held back. Mama Pink asks, has there been any solid evidence that the father-in-law wasn't the killer? Yes. There is quite a bit of solid evidence that Randy Bevers had absolutely nothing to do with Terri Bevers' murder. There's so much evidence, in fact, that Midlothian PD have cleared Randy Bevers of suspicion. Randy Bevers was with his wife in Southern California around the time of Terri's death. Their phone ping records have been thoroughly examined by law enforcement. Additionally, Randy, his wife, and a third party made social media posts around the time of Terri's murder, proving that they were thousands of miles away. Midlothian PD even posted this reply on Facebook when they were asked if Randy was involved. On top of this, my understanding is that Randy Bevers had an operation prior to Terri's death, where his vertebrae in his upper back and neck had been fused together, making it impossible for him to twist his neck in the manner that the Creekside killer does. Lastly, look at these photos I have captured of the SWFA driver and the Creekside killer. Terri's probable killer does not look anything like Randy Bevers. Randy Bevers 100% did not kill Terri, nor was he involved in Terri's murder in any way, shape, or form. The people out there on social media who continue to point fingers at Randy and Brandon, these are people that are not genuinely interested in solving Terri's case or helping to solve Terri's case. These are people that are not interested in following the facts and evidence. Before I move on, I want to talk about this image that has been circulating on the internet for years. It has even been featured on more prominent YouTube channels. Many of you know this already, but for those that don't, this image is 100% fabricated. This fake image was put out on the internet years ago, and now you will frequently see it with a side image of Randy Bevers and his wife in the hopes of drawing suspicion to them. I've spent hundreds of hours, possibly over 1,000 hours at this point, looking at every single frame of the SWFA and Creekside footage repeatedly, and I can say with absolute certainty that this photo is a fraud. Next up is longtime subscriber Jesus Lopez, who asks, say they find someone matching your description. What would they have to tie him to the case? For example, DNA or fingerprints. My understanding, Jesus, is that there was some DNA found at the crime scene. Now, whether the DNA found is, Terri Bevers' killer's DNA, and how much of the DNA was found, if it's a substantial amount, that is unknown. And I don't think law enforcement have released that information to anyone. I don't believe any fingerprints were found, given that Terry's killer was wearing gloves. But even without DNA or fingerprints, there is substantial evidence already that law enforcement can use to convict Terry's killer. While the prosecutor's case may end up being made up of mostly circumstantial evidence, I do think that through the process of elimination, the prosecutor will be able to narrow down a pool of suspects to just one person. For example, how many people in the US, let alone Texas, look like this? How many people who look like this are 5'8" or shorter? How many of those people had access to a 2010 to 2012 silver Nissan Altima at the time of Terry's murder? How many of those persons had a disability license plate and appear to have a disability on their right leg? And lastly, how many of those people had access to SWAT or imitation SWAT gear? I believe that without the hard DNA and fingerprint evidence, there is more than enough empirical and circumstantial evidence to convince a jury that this is the only person on the planet who could have killed Terry. You also must factor in that there will be plenty of people who will be willing to come forward with information once his name is released to the public. Persons he may have mentioned something to in passing, or persons who may have seen him with the SWAT gear or Nissan Altima. West Country Girl asked, does anyone know why the police didn't try to zoom in on the car model, license plate, etc.? I assure you, West Country Girl, that Midlothian PD have absolutely attempted to zoom in on the license plate. I think just about everyone who has seen the SWFA footage has tried to zoom in on the license plate. Law enforcement have access to software specifically designed to read plates in poor lighting or when in motion that civilians don't have access to. But I don't think that this software will do them much good in this situation. The biggest problem is that it was raining that night, so there is drizzle coming down in front of the plate that keeps the cameras from focusing in on the digits. Additionally, because the plate is low to the ground, there is water splashing and spraying up onto the plate as well. That being said, there are a few frames where the first character of the plate can be seen, and it appears to be the universal disability symbol. I have continued to work on enhancing the digits on the license plate, and later in this video, I will reveal some of those improved images. Continuing on the topic of the Nissan Altima and the disability license plate, someone on social media made kind of a snarky comment about my videos, and they said that there's no way Terry's killer would have driven around the SWFA with all those cameras pointed at him prior to driving over to Creekside to murder Terry. This is an extremely flawed argument because it assumes that Terry's probable killer knew ahead of time that they were going to kill someone that morning. I personally do not believe that Terry's killer went out that morning planning on killing anyone. In my opinion, they were out casing locations to break into, found an extremely easy target, Creekside Church, which is located just down the road from the SWFA, which I have circled here, and they broke in there. The fact that the SWFA driver didn't have a mask on and pressed his face up to his car window looking out multiple times at a location where there were tons of cameras is one of many arguments that supports the conclusion that this was not a targeted attack, but rather a burglary turned murder. Stick around, because later in this video you are going to see images of the suspect's face I extracted from the Creekside Church footage. The Creekside killer is not always wearing a mask as he walks around the church, and at one point he stares straight into the camera when he has his mask down. If you are planning on murdering someone in about an hour at a location that has cameras, why would you not always have a mask on? And why the hell would you stare into a camera with your mask off? Next is a comment made by another one of my favorite subscribers, Anna Lexi, who states, "Let's go flood John at his channel Lordan Arts. We need to tell him about this." Anna, thank you so much for your support, and thank you for sharing my information. I actually reached out to Lordan Arts in April of 2021, prior to releasing my video where I revealed the partial face of Terry's probable killer for the first time to the public. and I received no response. Additionally, I reached out to the local newspaper in Midlothian called the Midlothian Mirror, and I also received no response. Next up is longtime subscriber Devin Cook, who asks, Arrin, did you ever hear about the creepy message Terri got on LinkedIn 3 days prior?
That's a great question, Devin. Yes, I have heard about these LinkedIn messages, and I personally, I don't think they have anything to do with Terri's murder. I know that law enforcement thoroughly investigated this guy who made these comments to Terri on LinkedIn, and they also interviewed him. I know that he was listed as a person of interest back in 2016, but here we are in 2022, and I don't believe that they still are looking at him as a person of interest or even considering him as being involved in Terri's murder.
Certainly, these messages are interesting, and I can understand why investigators and the public were focused on these LinkedIn comments early in the case. But here we are nearly 6 years down the road on Terri's case with no arrest. I believe when Terri's killer is captured, which he will be, and everyone has a chance to look back at how this case played out, in hindsight they will view the LinkedIn messages and the drama surrounding Terri's personal life as distractions. Ashley Jenkin and Pamela B. ask me, why would anyone wear that ridiculous outfit for the burglary? And, do you think he was wearing padding under his gear to appear bigger or to disguise himself? This is purely my amateur opinion. The outfit to us seems theatrical and over the top for a burglar, but to Terri's killer, this outfit makes sense, primarily because he had access to it, but also because of its practical use. It covers his face, head, and yes, Pam, it does cover his body, disguising his true physical build. And I think there is a psychological aspect to this disguise, in that it makes him feel empowered. We also must consider that he is probably disabled physically, so this extra padding and body armor has additional practical purposes as well. Bubbles Bedlam asks, do you still think Terri's killer is not from Midlothian?
Bubbles, I still don't think that Terri's killer is from Midlothian, and I've mentioned several reasons in previous videos why I don't believe Terri's killer is from Midlothian. But here's just a few more reasons that I'd like to add.
I don't think he's from Midlothian because he doesn't appear to have ever been to the SWFA before. The SWFA had been there for years, and if he were from Midlothian, he could have stopped in at the SWFA at any time, cased the exterior of the building, and familiarized himself with the inside of the building simply by acting like a customer. Instead, he is seen circling around the building at 2 in the morning with rain pouring down, flashing his lights on and off, pressing his face up to the window trying to look in the building windows, and notating the locations of the cameras. Furthermore, if he were from Midlothian, I believe law enforcement would have arrested him almost immediately. Murders like this simply don't happen in Midlothian, Texas, and when this horrendous crime was committed, every single resident of Midlothian was on high alert. Probably every single person in town that drove a Nissan Altima were called in as a tip. Everyone who had been seen wearing SWAT or police gear at Halloween or playing airsoft and paintball was probably called in as a tip as well. And let's not forget the bizarre gait that Terri's killer has. Surely there were countless tips about persons in Midlothian who walk like this called in. Midlothian PD recently stated that they have received over 3,000 tips regarding Terri's murder over the last 5 years. I mean, look at what happened to Bobby Wayne Henry. The guy was way too tall, didn't drive an Altima, or have the same gait as Terri's killer. But Midlothian PD received numerous tips about him, and they rigorously investigated him. I mentioned in previous videos that Midlothian PD have done an exceptional job of investigating those in Terri's family, her circle of friends, and others in Midlothian to the furthest extent possible. So no, Bubbles, I don't believe Terri's killer is from Midlothian. And as a side note, even though Bobby Wayne Henry wasn't involved in Terri's murder, the silver lining here is that this scumbag is off the street. Next up, Dr. Tuttle commented, he didn't steal the white box. Nothing stolen. I'm assuming the white box he's referring to is this white object that the suspect is seen carrying here. We don't know for a fact that nothing was stolen. Law enforcement are under no obligation to reveal specifics on an open investigation, and they absolutely will not tell the public if something was stolen because that is information that only the suspect will know. For the sake of argument, even if nothing was stolen, you're missing the point. The point being that this appears to be a burglary interrupted. Clearly, the suspect is having issues getting into rooms that probably have things worth stealing. From my understanding, the rooms Terri's killer did gain access to had little to nothing worth stealing. According to police documents, Terri arrived 30 minutes after the suspect first appears on camera. Considering the suspect's slow pace, odd gait, and his inability to breach rooms that had valuables in them, it won't be shocking at all to find out in the end that nothing was stolen. Sky Voyager and Sherry Johnson ask, have you seen the post claiming there was a passenger in the vehicle, possibly a female? I read that there was a female passenger.
Yes, I did see that post on Web Sleuths, and I did speak with the person who made that claim, and from my understanding, they have retracted that claim. As someone who has spent hundreds of hours going frame by frame through the SWFA surveillance footage, I can say with absolute certainty that I have never seen anyone other than the driver inside that Nissan Altima. Alright, so now let's get into the new still images that I've extracted from the SWFA surveillance footage as well as the Creekside surveillance footage. And yes, prior to uploading this video, I did send all of these images over to Midlothian PD.
The first image here is just an update on the silhouette image of the Creekside killer. I tightened up the image, removing some of the blurring and pixelation around the edges to make the suspect's silhouette stand out more. Next up are some images of the license plate that I've been working on for months. As I've stated numerous times before, the first character on the plate appears to be the universal disability symbol, which is distorted in these new images. However, the remaining characters stand out a little bit more. The following are the new still images I have extracted from the SWFA and Creekside surveillance footage. Included are new, never before seen by the public, still images of Terri's probable killer's face in the Creekside surveillance footage. Keep in mind that we are dealing with moving objects in average to below average surveillance camera footage, so there is going to be some pixelation, distortion, and blurring. For this reason, I am including an oval guide to assist viewers. Be on the lookout for Terri's probable killer. He is a light-skinned adult male. He has a distinctive hook or parrot-shaped nose. He had a shaved head around the time of Terri's murder in April 2016. Law enforcement have stated that they believe he is 5'6" to 5'8" in height, but he may be shorter. I believe he has a prosthetic right leg or severe deformation on his right leg. He had access to a silver 2010 to 2012 Nissan Altima in 2016. And it appears that he had a disability license plate on that vehicle. If you have any information, please call the tip line at 972-937-7297. If you don't want to speak with law enforcement, you can contact me at arrinstoner@yahoo.com, and you can remain completely anonymous.